welcome to Gentle Musings. Thank you for tuning in. If we're new to each other, my name is Maggie. I'm an artist, a writer, and a creative coach. And what I do, what I'm about, in a nutshell, just a little bit about it, is that I help people live as their most authentic, creative selves. Not in a dream future version of life, but in the muchness of life, in the uncertainty of life, in the intensity of life, living as your most creative self. I'm not just talking about formal creative practices or what you make in terms of writing or painting or, these things we might think of. I'm talking about creative living. And so I have a number of principles that guide my work. I will be sharing more about these, but I call them organizing principles. Also, there's animating principles. More to come on that. I want to make a video about animating and organizing principles since this is core to what I do. But one of the organizing principles that guides my work is that your true self, when you live feeling most true to you, again, not with the perfect circumstances, not with the perfect life, but genuinely feeling true to yourself and how you show up, and having how you feel on the inside match what you say, what you do. Your true self is your creative self. Your true self is your creative self. When people live creative lives, and I'm talking about creativity expansively, right? Like everyday creativity, how you relate to yourself and others, how you relate to time, how you create meaning in your life. Living creatively contributes to an embodied sense of wholeness and authenticity, inner coherence. And this is what I really care about. Because when we're talking about creative living, we're talking about self-trust. We're talking about being honest with yourself. We're talking about integrity. We're talking about power, and vitality and care and rest. We're talking about all of these things through the lens of creativity. I also believe that prioritizing your creativity, however that looks for you, it can look so many ways, isn't a nice to have, but it's a fundamental. And that our deepest levels of care and power and integrity are embodied and expressed through our innate creativity. Here on Gentle Musings, this is what I'm exploring. This is what you can expect in all episodes. There is an archive if you want to revisit any. So before I go any deeper into this episode, I just want to comment on the name of Gentle Musings because I've been feeling a little bit meh about it. So I came up with this name years ago, and it's just what I've been using. So part of that is just, it's what I had, it's what I've been using. There's some sentiment to it. And it was always meant to bring together, the gentle part is about softening to life, softening to my relationship to myself, to creativity, really softening to ideas that we hold, softening to the grasping of it has to be this way, or it has to, binary thinking even. And a commitment to being open, cultivating openness, cultivating receptivity to life when it's so easy to numb out and close off and shut down. And then the musings bit is kind of like a self-permission around, one, I'm sharing reflections, and that this is a reflective podcast, but also the musings is, this if you've listened to episodes, we can just go all over and the things might connect and come together near the end or at different points, but this kind of open exploration. And then together also just holding it all lightly, just truly living into the questions of what I'm sharing and sharing from process. So I like it in that way. And I don't know. I like the hand lettering that goes with it, but it's a very vague name. Part of that might be okay. There is definitely a feeling to it, or like a kind of, a sense to it that is in the title. For example, some people, it might spark some curiosity for them, and even if they're not sure what it is, and then others, they know it's not for them because of the title. But I'm not sure, so I'm just bringing that up because that has made it a little bit tough to really get into the groove of recording and doing this. And I also would love to hear, if you want to share, how it lands for you and what it what it communicates to you, the title, Gentle Musings, if you want to share. Another thing that has always been a little bit of a creative block in sitting down to record is that I have always wanted Gentle Musings, like I said, to be exploratory, but also kind of like sitting down with a friend, like a catch up. I want to share just from my process. I want it to be open and personal in some ways. Sorry for the big inhales also. I've been talking with people all day. There's been a part of myself that says, must deliver value. This has to be value packed. I honor your time. You've probably heard me talk about these things before, since I tend to share the same types of reflections at different levels and different angles. And maybe you feel this also if you publish a newsletter, if you have a podcast, if you want to share your voice, even if you're just thinking about it and haven't done it yet, that it must be valuable. It must be worth someone's time. It can't contribute to the noise of the internet, the very noisy internet. And I have really had to, push back against that idea and remind myself of, what's really valuable is hearing about people's creative processes, hearing about what's real, about what's happening in the messy middle, hearing how different people live and their perspectives. And it's valuable to me to be taught concepts and tools, but there's a totally different type of value when you see someone living into what's true for them, which is what my work is all about. And so can I call myself up to that, to show that here, to share that with you, and know that that is valuable and that it doesn't require perfection. It doesn't require always having the expert hat on or trying to solve for all of your challenges that I know that I can support with, but actually just saying, this is what's real right now, and letting that be the value. So that's my intention with this episode, is to lean into that. And so this one's going to be especially chatty, especially informal. I don't know where it's going to go, but here are some of the notes that I wrote down for things that we might cover and we might talk about. Consistency, what's beyond consistency, the importance of consistency, reliability as a different way of looking at it. Doubting the name Gentle Musings, I've already talked about that. The internet, just like casual topics, very specific topics, the internet. Berlin, I was just traveling and I've had a couple people ask about what that was like, and I can share. I don't know if I want to share about that in this or in a whole other one, because I can imagine just talking about Germany for like an hour, and I don't want to do that today. Circle of Quiet. Like this. I'm trying to hide the library stuff. I don't know how to say her name ever. Madeleine L'Engle, the author of A Wrinkle in Time, which I'm also reading. That has been my October read. Also, some other just in the business ecosystem world of Regarding Do, which is my creative research studio. I have a continually revamped site, including the page all about one-on-one creative coaching. I hope that you check that out. I can share about that later. And also zines, talking about zines. I can also share about that. Anyway, let me start with reading a passage from this. If you're a writer, if you are someone who writes, but maybe you don't call yourself a writer, if you have any kind of formal creative practice, if you don't and you feel like you're at one of your last ditch efforts, I just want to read this because I was touched by this part. Okay, here it is. I didn't dread being 40. I looked forward to it. My 30s had been such a rough decade in so many ways that I was eager for change. Surely with the new decade, luck would turn. On my birthday, I was, as usual, out in the tower working on a book. The children were at school. My husband was at work and would be getting the mail. He called saying, quote, "I'm sorry to have to tell you this on your birthday, but you'd never trust me again if I kept it from you. Blank, redacted. Has rejected The Lost Innocent, one of her books. This seemed an obvious sign from heaven. I should stop trying to write. All during the decade of my 30s, the world's 50s, I went through spasms of guilt because I spent so much time writing, because I wasn't like a good New England housewife and mother. When I scrubbed the kitchen floor, the family cheered. I couldn't make a decent pie crust. I always managed to get something red in the white laundry, in the washing machine so that everybody wore streaky pink underwear. And with all the hours I spent writing, I was still not pulling my own weight financially. So the rejection on my 40th birthday seemed an unmistakable command. Stop this foolishness and learn to make cherry pie. I covered the typewriter in a great gesture of renunciation. See, it even makes me, it makes me emotional imagining what she went through. And then I walked around and around the room, bawling my head off. I was totally, unutterably miserable. Suddenly I stopped because I realized what my subconscious mind was doing while I was sobbing. My subconscious mind was busy working out a novel about failure. I uncovered the typewriter. In my journal, I recorded this moment of decision, for that's what it was. I had to write. I had no choice in the matter. It was not up to me to say I would stop because I could not. It didn't matter how small or inadequate my talent, if I ever had another book published, and it was very clear to me that this was a real possibility, I still had to go on writing. Now this part. I'm glad I made the decision in the moment of failure. It's easy to say that you're a writer when things are going well. When the decision is made in the abyss, then it is quite clear that it is not one's own decision at all. So good. Reading this quote reminded me, it's in my other Obsidian vault. I'm going to find this right now. Reminded me of, I know where I can find it. From a talk by James Baldwin. He said, the cat survived all that, and this is a very crucial thing. You know, dirty socks can make you feel like nothing but a dirty sock. You walk into a room and somebody says, what do you do? And you say, I write. And they say, yeah, but what do you do? And you wonder, what do you do? And what's it for? Why don't you get a job? And somehow you can't. And finally you learn this in the most terrible way because you try. You're in the position of someone on the edge of a field, and it's cold in the field. And there's a house over there, and there's a fire in the house, and food and everything you need, everything you want. And you make all kinds of efforts to get into the house, and they would let you in. They would let you in. They're not being cruel. They recognize you as you come to the door, and they can't let you in. You get in, let us say, for 5 minutes, and you can't stay. And another part, I really don't like the word artist or integrity or courage or nobility. I have a kind of distrust of all of those words because I don't know what they mean, any more than I really know what such words as democracy or peace-loving or warlike or integration mean. And yet one is compelled to recognize that all these imprecise words are attempts made by us all to get to something which is real and which lives behind the words. Whether I like it or not, for example, and no matter what I call myself, I suppose the only word for me when the chips are down is that I am an artist. There is such a thing. There is such a thing as integrity. Some people are noble. There is such a thing as courage. The terrible thing is that the reality behind these words depends ultimately on what the human being, meaning every single one of us, believes to be real. The terrible thing is that the reality behind all of these words depends on choices one has got to make forever and ever and ever, every day. Reminds me of that. Again, there's so many parts that I flagged that are notable. I will be, if you're wondering, like, what do you do with all of those? Because I'm not keeping this book. It's from the library. I put them in my Obsidian, which I'm obsessed with. If you don't know about Obsidian, it's a kind of note-taking software for free. Amazing. I want to do some videos showing and talking, doing a tour of my Obsidian and showing how you set one up. But I will put the quotes under quotes in Obsidian and categorize those as I do in a very nerdy way. And even with all of these, I don't recommend this book because there are only so many books we can read, not to take like a scarcity mindset about it, but I have been organizing my book list and I wrote about this, hundreds of books. Like, I don't even know why I didn't save them thinking I could read all of these books, but I saved hundreds of books. And when you start to really break down, 457 books. When you start to break down reading those books, you realize you have to be, more discerning about what you actually read, which doesn't mean every book has to be amazing. I obviously got a lot out of this, and you get out, meaning out of any book you read if you kind of find it, or most books. It was, in case you need a light-hearted read, it's basically a blog that got published as a book before blogs. And she kind of just goes on about some things of, it's one you can pick up and set down, but I just wanted to share that passage. There's a few golden passages in here that I will be sharing more of. So consistency and reliability. This has really been on my mind. Obviously, this is something about showing up for podcasting, showing up for any kind of creative project. So getting on camera and recording, both difficult for me. I'm doing them both at the same time. Just why not double up? But this is something that I bet you can relate to, where you have these things that just stir up a lot of fear, and you're still pulled to do them. You are drawn to do it, and the fear is feels like a wall sometimes, but that thing is fulfilling for you, and so you keep trying, or you keep wanting to try, even if you're not taking action on it. That longing is real. I have that with getting on camera, with recording. I've had that with giving presentations and speeches, and just, oh my God, feeling absolutely terrified being in the spotlight, and really wanting to feel like myself sharing, and that's what this is about. Working for myself has been a slow learning curve, or unlearning curve, of unlearning unhelpful norms and then creating new norms in my work. It's a little microcosm where I can not fully do that, but I can do that in a lot of ways. I definitely do that with facilitating groups, and we're unlearning norms there, and we're living into what is more life-giving, what's more spacious, and so we can feel relaxed relating to each other. Anyway, this is sometimes a very scary thing to do. A lot of the times it is, but most of the time it's also relieving and energizing to remember that we can break and make rules in so many ways. And creativity really shows us that. One of the norms that I have unlearned in my work is consistency as the holy grail of work ethic. It is not. What we've been taught about consistency, a very industrial version of it, is unhelpful when it comes to following the lead of your own energetic capacity, what your creative practice needs this season, and each project's unique pace. There's nuance here, of course, having worked with so many people to reconnect and reclaim their creativity. This is what I believe. Consistency matters. It does matter. And unlearning what we've been taught about consistency does too. I rejected it for a long time in order, one, to rebel, but in order to create space to hear and heed my own creative rhythms. And especially as a small business owner, this is where the reliability comes up. I have practiced reliability over consistency. And in order to be reliable, you have to be inconsistent sometimes at certain, phases and seasons, especially when you're learning a lot of skills at once and building something. I have prioritized being reliable. And this if we work together one-on-one in courses, if in any way you're within the private community. I run a business that offers close, ongoing, highly personalized support to each and every person because I cherish and I respect the people who trust me to know their inner worlds, to help meet them in those moments of facing enormous creative fear, or the grief that comes with feeling like they're too late, or there's a lost dream, or that they wish they had the support, they had the resources that they needed when they were younger, or even now. Feeling guilty about prioritizing oneself and one's practices. It goes on and on. I feel a lot of respect, cherishment, and honor in doing that. And so I have prioritized being super reliable and not so consistent in the ways I show up in other areas, which is also okay. We don't have to sometimes have a project and say, well, I'm going to publish every week or twice a week or what, it doesn't always need to be like that. And it hasn't always been one of my top priorities to have that. I needed the creative freedom to be inconsistent in my work as well. And this season, I'm ready to step more fully into aligned consistency, exploring what that means. One of the ways I'm doing that with my podcast is that I'm now co-working with a fellow artist, and we're supporting each other to move forward on this. This is accountability. I facilitate accountability groups. Love it. I love some accountability when it is structured in a really nourishing, helpful way. And sometimes it does give you the, kick in the tush that you need, that you wouldn't get when you're just trying to hold it alone. I'm so curious, what does your relationship to consistency look like? What do you want to unlearn about unhelpful structures, standards, definitions of consistency? And what about consistency works for you? What makes it easier? Aligned consistency. I would love to hear from you. I love talking about these things and thinking about these things. So I have to wrap this one up because I've been talking with people all day today, and so my throat is a little bit... We'll talk about Berlin another time if you want to hear about that. New site I mentioned, I'll link it below. I think it's fun and shows my spirit in a lot of ways, and it's still in process, but I would love to hear what you think about it. One thing to know is I did a lot of coding on it, and so I have a Mac, but if you don't have it full screen and you have it half or varying sizes, some of the coded letters get a bit wonky and kind of pile onto each other. I don't know how to fix that. I will fix that. Zines, I will talk about zines more another time. There's too much to get into with zines. And then the internet, oh my gosh, I had so much on my list for today, and I don't have the voice capacity for it. The internet, let me just, I have so much. I will link some of the writings I've done on the internet and audios about my changing relationship with social media. And it's mostly the internet, less than social media, but even Substack here has the feeds and all of those features. I will say we just got our TV up and running, our CRTV, which is those old-fashioned ones with an HDMI cord and a RVA box, I think it's called. And you can mirror whatever is on your computer onto the TV. That's really cute, and I'll share some of that. That helps just being off of the laptop in general. Part of getting offline more and more, extracting from that, is doing less things that are, I don't have the word for this, but multi-purpose devices, and separating it out. Having something that plays your music, whether it's a boombox or a stereo or an iHome. I don't know if they make those with an iPod. Having that separate, having the way that you watch movies separate, whether it's on a projector or a little TV. I know a lot of TVs are hooked up to the internet. Having games separate from your devices. This takes up space, this takes money, this takes maybe thrifting or finding things and time to build into that way, but that's how I've been doing it. And one way of also doing this with reading and reading articles online is that I have printed so many articles into a binder. I love binders, and I've printed them and I read those in bed, and I will show that another time because it's in the closet, so I don't want to run and get that right now. But printing out readings I've loved to do, and something that's on my list for the future, hopefully the near future, I think it's a good winter thing, is having sharing nights where people share things that they have, that they love on the internet, where it's all curated. So there's so many wonderful things about social media too, especially the humor, especially things that are just heartfelt. And sharing these, I think it would be so much fun. We have a projector, having friends over, and each person gets 10 minutes or 12 minutes, and they share. It could be political things. It could be cute videos of, I like this one video of a little goose that's running to greet their friend. Could be animals. It could, so many different things, but just sharing what is meaningful to them and kind of the best of, but that coming from the people that you love and care about, and being all together in the space, enjoying snacks and drinks and sharing a laugh, sharing discussion after. Sharing nights, that's what I called it, sharing nights. And I want to do that. That is totally on my list. All right, that's all I have to share for today. I'm going to wrap and have some tea with honey, and just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this, please do give it a like so that I know, or share this with a friend, reshare this, restack, whatever the lingo is. I sound like an old lady. So that other people can find it too. It's always so meaningful, so that it's not, so I know that it's landing. That helps a lot. And wishing you a week of play and rest and connection, and see you soon. Bye.